Welcome in. We have finally made it. The off season is over. The 2025 NTT IndyCar Series season is here, and it is time for our season preview. Caleb Hatch, Justin Kinney with you from the WELT studios in Fort Wayne. First, hi, Justin.
Hello. I thought you were going to say it's finally here. Justin is actually in the studio.
Also
to record
also
for the first time in a couple weeks. So glad to be back on the cusp of a big weekend. You going to Houston with the baby. That's the big news. So we'll have a full report on that next week. Oh, yes, and the IndyCar opener at St. Petersburg.
I mean, flying for one, not real thrilled about it right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's still very, very safe. It's just, there's been some things in the news. It's a little bit...
just a few.
A little weird, but...
And then flying with a baby. So
I think that's
a double whammy.
I'd almost rather fly with a baby than a toddler, but I think both could be particularly horrendous, but we'll hope for the best.
Yes.
For Ted especially, and then for you and the wife as well. So
absolutely.
Just keep the little bottles of liquor coming if need be on the flights.
The one positive is where we're going, it's going to be warm. It's going to be warmer than it is in St. Pete, which I saw the weather for Sunday in St. Pete was sunny and 75. It's supposed to be, like perfect weather. Well, down there on Saturday, it's supposed to be like low to mid 80s.
Amazing.
It'll be sunny like the whole time. So we're there Friday. I think we'll get there Friday early evening, and we don't come back here till Monday night. So it'll be a nice break.
Yeah, and it's so much easier to pack when it's warm.
Yes.
You're just like, especially as a man, because when I
shorts
pack
and
for
t-shirts.
Spring,
and like maybe one or two nice like polo shirts.
Yeah, exactly. So the wife's always on me for spring break or anytime we go somewhere in the summer, and it's like, you got to pack. Like, it'll take me 5 minutes.
Yeah. Packing for winter's harder because it's bulkier and you got to make everything fit.
Figure out what, how many pairs do I have to take, jeans and whatever. Yeah. For you and I, we're simple. Shorts and t-shirt, maybe a couple polos. That's it.
Is it weird? I'm thinking more about what I want to wear on the plane. Yes. Versus what I'm wearing when I'm there.
Yeah, because
you want to wear something comfortable, but you don't want to look like a schlub, and you got to find that balance.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, since I'm at home with the baby during the day, and then I do work during the evenings and weekends now, my outfit is generally, once I shower and get dressed for the day, mind you, is generally a flannel shirt and sweatpants. So yes. I got to figure out what I'm going to wear.
Is that too schlubby, you think?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Because you got to mix comfort and...
True.
I'm not wearing pajama pants and slippers.
Yeah.
A lot of people do on flight, which I don't understand.
You always see those videos of people with like open-toed shoes or flip-flops on, and then they're like putting their feet up. Like, don't be that person.
No,
but
do not be that person.
You got to be comfortable. I mean, I think sweatpants are fine. But then again, my
joggers,
job,
to be
joggers, yes. Yeah. Like I live on sweatpants and joggers.
Yeah, athleisure as the clothing.
That's all I wear to work.
Is called.
I can get away with it.
So you have a quarter zip, and then what pants are you wearing today?
Like these,
performance, they're kind of like warm up pants.
Yeah, like warm up pants. That's pretty much what I wear. So that's usually my attire for work. So when I have to put jeans on, it's a major inconvenience.
I'm sure we would be killed for our outfits by Twitter fashion guy.
Or we don't look like Penske material. We could not dress like this.
Our shirt collars are not starched.
Yes, they are not starched, so we would not pass Penske inspection.
No. With that, I guess we should talk IndyCar.
I guess.
So season preview. So we'll run through the regular list. Season champion, Indy 500 winner, rookie of the year, biggest surprise, biggest disappointment, first time winner.
Yeah, any first time
winners.
Maybe disappointment team wise too, or
bold predictions.
Yeah, the whole gamut.
And
we'll see if anybody agrees.
Yeah, and I think last year, if I recall, I picked Pato Award to win the championship. And I picked Marcus Ericsson to win the Indy 500, if I'm not mistaken. I forget who you picked for the title, but I think you picked Kyle Kirkwood to win the 500.
I think I picked Kyle Kirkwood, and I want to say I picked I think Joseph Newgarden. Did I pick Joseph Newgarden to win the championship?
So take our predictions with a grain of salt.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about before, like, do we just both take Alex Palou to win the championship?
Yeah.
I mean, is it that bad? So, but yeah, we'll get all that, and we'll trust our listeners to keep us appraised of how bad our picks are.
Yes, please do. In fact, if you send us a graphic with all of our picks,
that'd be amazing.
So we can mock them all season long, that would be much appreciated.
That'd be phenomenal.
Also, we'll obviously do a preview of the Firestone Grand Prix at St. Petersburg, of course, coming up this weekend as we get things started in IndyCar and series formerly known as Indy Lights.
Yes.
Get started as well. So let's start with the predictions. So season champion, this is the one. And I've toiled back and forth because there are a few names that immediately come to mind. I feel like the hot pick this year is Scott McLaughlin for a lot of people. Obviously, another solid pick is Alex Palou. Could he become the first three-peat since Dario Franchitti did it in 2009, 10, and 11? And, I'm going to be boring. I'm going to go with Alex Palou. He's just on another level right now where he is out-Dixoning Scott Dixon in terms of how he wins races. His consistency is unmatched.
Right.
And Ganassi is far and away, in terms of the championship fight, the best team. I think everyone would agree that Penske has the best driver lineup overall. But in terms of fighting for a title, Palou and Dixon are the most consistent drivers, and obviously Palou is he is in his prime right now, so I'm going to be boring. I'm going to go with Palou for a three-peat. It
currently has been Ganassi domination of late. 4 of the last 5 series champions. Scott Dixon in 2020, and then Alex Palou 3 of the last 4. Will Power winning in 2022. So that team has it figured out, and Palou is back. Dixon is back. It is a solid pick for sure. I will, just to mix it up, go. I just don't know about Scott McLaughlin. I feel like I will repeat my pick from last year and go Joseph Newgarden.
Okay.
Why? After finishing 8th in the points last year, I don't know. But I feel like we narrow it down to 2 teams. 2 teams compete for championships in IndyCar. You took a Ganassi driver. I'm going to take a Penske driver. And I think after winning the Indianapolis 500 the last 2 years, but underperforming as the season as a whole, I feel like maybe this is a year where Joseph Newgarden does not win the Indianapolis 500, but puts together a complete season and wins the championship. So I will go Joseph Newgarden to win the 2025 IndyCar championship.
And I think something to throw in about Palou, I forgot to mention, still hasn't won an oval, but is a 3-time series champion. So tell me how important that really is. Right? I think it's just kind of proven, and we had this debate in the past, but it's proven that you just need to be consistent.
Correct.
And that oval win we still say is coming. I thought it would have happened last year, to be honest. It didn't. But he's so consistent. And Newgarden closed the season really strong. He had a couple of bad races right before the end, but you get disqualified from a race, and that ruins your season.
Help.
Remember, he won St. Pete before he was disqualified. So
yes. So
it's not like he was off to a bad start, and he's good at St. Pete, so he could get off to a fast start again.
Absolutely could, and that's who I'm going with. I know the sneaky pick is Scott McLaughlin, as you mentioned. It could end up being him. I just I don't know. I'm not there yet. He's improved every year that he has been in the series, which is now year 5 now in terms of a full-time driver, which is just astounding to me. He's been more than adept at every track. Still doesn't have a top 5 at Indianapolis, but that's just one race. And has won multiple races 2 of the last 3 years. 2 wins last year. But I'm going to go with the other bullet in the chamber, so to speak, for Team Penske, and go with Joseph Newgarden.
Also, we didn't fall for it in terms of picking a non-Penske Ganassi driver. We've done that before. I'm done doing that until
yes. We learned our lesson, right?
Yes. Moving on, Indy 500 winner, and I'm going to be honest. Some of these I feel pretty confident in having a selection. I have absolutely no clue on this one. So I'm going to say Pato O'Ward finally gets it done at Indy, gets that Indy 500 win after finishing second, 2 out of the last 3 years. Pato O'Ward is my pick to get it done. He's got the team. They've had the pace. Now, I think it will be interesting as I think their driver lineup is kind of taking a step back in terms of oval experience with no Alexander Rossi, but Kyle Larson's still there, and we'll see. But that's my choice. Just he finally gets that win.
Man, you're really going on a limb with these picks, huh? You
right?
With Alex Palou and you go with Pato O'Ward. I will go Team Penske at Indianapolis, but it won't be a three-peat. I'll go Scott McLaughlin to win. I mentioned how he finally seemed to break through last year at Indianapolis. After 3 years of struggles, of course, starting on the pole last year, finishing 6th, it just felt like it finally felt comfortable for Scott McLaughlin at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway last year. And I think that was a precursor to this season. I still think a Team Penske driver wins Indianapolis. It won't be Joseph Newgarden. I'll go Scott McLaughlin to win the Indy 500.
Good pick. I almost picked Will Power. He's in a contract year, and Nathan Brown of the Indy Star with a good write-up on that. He's hired Fernando Alonso's management firm and Oriol Servia, who's still the IndyCar pace car driver as well, who's friends with Alonso, works with Alonso for that agency, is Will Power's rep, which Servia and Power were teammates, 2007 and 8? Right, at KV?
Yep.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Was it both years? I know it was at least one of the 2 years.
May have been 2. I'm drawing a blank on that one.
So that would be, I guess, my backup pick.
Okay.
We move on to Rookie of the Year. We have candidates Louis Foster, Robert Schwartzman, and Jacob Abel.
It's almost, you almost look at where these guys are for their teams.
Mm-hmm. This feels more wide open. Like,
it does kind of, because
a couple years ago, you had Marcus Armstrong on a limited schedule, but I still chose him just because he was with Ganassi, right? And
smart.
This year, it feels wide open. We don't know what Prima has, right?
Right. I mean, Robert Schwartzman is the most accomplished of the trio, but he's also the only one with a new team, brand new team.
Yeah,
to the series.
That's the factor. You know what? I'm going to be bold. I'm going to say Louis Foster. He dominated in the series formerly known as Indy Lights. He's with a Rahal team that's trying to get their way back up. He's super talented. I don't think anyone doubts that.
Right.
I'm going to go with him. I think he's going to have a good year, and maybe Rahal finally found another driver to kind of step up and compete for wins. I'm not saying he's going to compete for wins in year one, mind you.
Right.
But he's really talented. I think with Schwartzman, I have doubts just because it's a new team. There are going to be things that, come and go in terms of just learning on the job. And with Jacob Abel, I actually feel really good about the Coyne team, as we talked last week, about what they have going into this season. But their goal is just get in the leader circle for both entries. Like, it's Rookie of the Year would be nice. And for him, it's just finishing races, getting laps.
Right.
I think Foster has a legit shot to surprise some people this year.
No, I'm gonna agree, and I'm gonna go with Louis Foster too. It's a boring pick, not going against you, but I think the biggest thing for me that stands out, not just with a brand new team to IndyCar and Prema, but Robert Schwartzman has not raced in the United States. He's not raced on ovals. Okay, he started in Italian F4 and moved his way up into F3 and F2. Yeah, he won those series championships, but there's no ovals on that schedule, obviously, over in Europe. And I just feel with Louis Foster's experience in Indy Pro 2000 and then 2 years in Indy Lights, I feel like that is going to really put him ahead for the Rookie of the Year race. We hear a lot of good things about RLL. We always do. And we're always skeptical. But I think this year, the driver-team combination of Foster and Rahal is the strongest of the 3 full-time rookies. So I'm also going to go with Louis Foster.
Also of note, I mean, Schwartzman doesn't know any of the tracks, right? So
exactly.
that's it. Whereas Foster has spent multiple years on the ladder. And yes, Abel has got a couple years as well. I just think Foster has slightly better equipment to push him to the front.
And the team doesn't know any of the tracks. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's not just a rookie not knowing any of the tracks. The team doesn't know any of the tracks. So I just feel with that, I'm going Louis Foster.
All right, we move along in our preseason predictions. I feel like it's been pretty boring so far, so now it's going to get more fun.
All right, let's go.
Biggest surprise for this season. And I think my biggest surprise is you know what? I've mentioned this before, and I'm on the Kool-Aid. Dale Coyne Racing is going to be the best of the midfield of the teams outside the Big Four in terms of results. Now, I'm not saying overall point standings, but in terms of what they accomplish with VK and Abel, they will outpace the ECRs, the Juncos, the Primas, the Rahals, I guess the Foyts in terms of expectations.
Okay.
I think they will be a surprise going into this season.
All right. I don't hate it. I think we're all high on Rinus VeeKay and his capabilities. Jacob Abel, you never really know with the rookie coming into the series, but he has the pedigree, has the experience, right, on the road to Indy, and it's an interesting pick. I think when we look at the midfield and who could emerge, there you can make a case for several different teams. AJ Foyt Racing was that team last year that seemingly came out of nowhere. Looking back in hindsight, you could see signs behind the scenes that could happen. But at the same time, look how AJ Foyt Racing was buoyed by the fact that they had Santino Ferrucci, the right driver in the right situation. You're kind of comparing that to Rinus VeeKay and Dale Coyne, right driver, right situation, right time. And maybe that team could be the Foyt Racing of 2024.
Also of note, I mean, it's a big change for Coyne. They have 2 full season drivers compared to the mishmash of last year. You have 2 full season sponsors. It was confirmed that Todd All is investing in Coyne, at least in terms of sponsorship. We don't know in terms of a stake in Coyne Racing. That was discussed in the offseason, but Ask ROI back with Rinus VeeKay and with Coyne, obviously Jacob Abel with Abel Construction on board full season as well. So you have consistency with sponsors. You have consistency with drivers in the seats. I think in terms of the midfield, which this one feels iffy, I would exclude Shank from the midfield because of their association with Ganassi.
Yeah,
in terms of the technical partnership. But in the teams outside of the big teams plus Shank, I think Coyne is going to be the one that's going to be the biggest surprise this year. Now, are they going to win a race? Probably not. Could they sneak a podium? Yeah, I think so. I said that last week. And I think they're going to impress, and I think they're going to do a good job going into this year. What about you in terms of biggest surprise?
Biggest surprise, does this also go bold prediction, or is that a different one?
Different one.
Okay. Then I have to find a different one because I'm going to save that one for bold prediction. I think biggest surprise for me, let's see here. Biggest surprise. I will go, let's see here. Man. I mean, would it be a surprise if I'm going to go Andretti wins 1 race, the team.
Wow. A team that won, 2 last year, both with Herta?
Right, and Herta finishes second in the championship. I think there's a lot of positivity around that. I feel like the jump from finishing second to first is a huge jump. I mean, just talk to Pato O'Ward about that in Indianapolis. I'm going to say Andretti only wins 1 race. I think there's going to be more of an impact behind the scenes with what we saw happen in the offseason. The leader is gone. And not just gone, like completely gone. And I feel like inevitably there's going to be different things done and handled than what Michael Andretti did. And I think it could be almost a readjustment year of sorts for Andretti. Maybe not, but we're talking biggest surprises here, so I'm going a little bit on a limb. I think there's going to be an adjustment period for Andretti Global with new regime and control. for the first time ever in the history of the team. So that is my biggest surprise of the season. I say Andretti Global, as a collective, wins just one race. And I will say Colton Herta gets that win.
This is a team that was struggling. Colton Herta hadn't won in several years. Marcus Ericsson had a really tough first year with him. And Kyle Kirkwood was consistent, but he didn't win any races. He won 2 in his first year in Andretti. They got 2 wins in the second half of the season, kind of completely changed the thought process, the momentum going into the offseason for them to close out the year, especially with that win at Nashville. And Kirkwood had the pole at Nashville too, right? So
right.
that kind of completely changed kind of the narrative of how their season went with getting 2 wins in the second half and the way they closed strong. So yeah, that's an interesting choice. Biggest disappointment.
You want me to go first?
You go first if you have it.
Oh. I think a biggest disappointment. I know somebody is going to like this one. Scott Dixon.
Wow.
Is not going to finish in the top. I think I predicted this last year as well. Will not finish in the top 5 in points. And partly because of something that's out of his control, and he's already behind the 8 ball, so to speak, in terms of engines. Only 4 laps on his engine before it blew during testing. And that's probably a story we'll touch on a little bit later. But effectively, he's already behind the 8 ball in terms of potentially having an engine penalty later in the year. Finished 6th in points last year. Had just 1 win. Or 2 wins, excuse me. One at Detroit, too, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
As in addition to Long Beach. But still finished 6th in points. I feel like Alex Palou is clearly the alpha at that team. I think the last couple of years we said, well, it was a 1A, 1B. I think it's clearly 1 and 2, and Alex Palou is the 1. I think Scott Dixon is still a phenomenal race car driver, but at 44, 45 years old come July, I continue to say we're seeing signs that he's no longer the driver he once was. He's still very, very good, but inevitably when you get into your 40s in terms of your reaction time and decision making and all that, it falls off. He hasn't won a championship in 5 years. That is equaling the drought that he had between 2008 and 2013. And I have a hard time looking at him as a championship contender. I really do. And I think he will go back to back worse than 5th place finishes in the standings for the first time since 2004 and 2005.
Which was the Toyota slow engine syndrome
debacle
seasons for Ganassi at that time.
I just think you look at it and you say, okay, you throw a couple Penske drivers back in the top 5, you feel. I think McLaughlin's there. I think Newgarden bounces back. Palou's going to be there. I think Pato is going to be there. You run out of room in the top 5 pretty darn quick, right? So I just feel like maybe we look back and say 2024 was that year where you saw, he got a couple wins, but especially we saw very Scott Dixon-like results last year. And some of it was just luck, because we know that Scott Dixon for the longest time has had the best luck in the IndyCar series. And eventually that was going to even out. And last year we started seeing that. And we're already seeing that this year by already having an engine blow after 4 laps at testing. And so, and Doug Boles coming out and saying, no, we're not changing the rule. That's an engine replacement. And you only get 4 of them before you start getting penalties for the year. So I think it's a auspicious start for Scott Dixon before the year even begins. And I think it continues into the season. I see him finishing maybe 6th again, like he did last year. But I'm going to say, much like I did last year, and everybody scoffed and yelled at me, and if he wasn't going to be in the top 5 in points, and look where he finished, 6th.
Good job.
Thank you. What about you? Hey, I got to brag when I get something
right.
No,
for real. And to help Dixon, talking about that engine thing, he's lucky that 3 of the last 7 races are on ovals. So
correct.
It's not going to be a huge detriment in that aspect. Biggest disappointment. You know what? I'm going to go with Prima.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to Prima later too, but for you, go ahead in terms of your biggest disappointment.
I think there's a lot of hype with them, and we all felt good about the program with Michael Cannon. Then there was that public disagreement. He left. He's going to be out of the series basically for the entire season. He'll show up somewhere, I'm sure, next year if he wants to come back in the sport. A lot of hype around this team. This feels the same and yet different compared to Carlin coming to the sport a few years ago. Carlin, well thought of, European, F1 ladder team, a lot of success, a lot of IndyCar guys had raced for him. They came in and, they looked the part, but I remember, I'll never forget this. I ran into Rob Howden, friend of the show, at Barber that first season, and he said, look, they're doing the best they can, but a lot of these guys just moved up from Indy Lights, and a lot of them haven't even done live pit stops before. So with Prima, yes, were they able to throw money around and hire the talent they wanted? For sure. In terms of there's a good article talking about prices in IndyCar that Marshall Pruitt had on Racer.com, and mentioning that mechanics are making like $90K, which is like, that's a good salary. Now it's a hard job, and you're working really hard for 6-7 months out of the year,
right?
But it's improved in terms of the salaries, and Prema is one of the teams, along with McLaren, that have kind of spearheaded that in Andretti in terms of driver salaries for the sport. But with Prema, look, you lost your engineering ace that you had, and that's a massive loss. You have a driver who's been good in IndyCar, not great. He's put together a few really good results, but he's not really known for his oval prowess. So you're not going to look good at Indy. You have a rookie driver who doesn't know any of the tracks. And I don't know if you've noticed, and maybe this will change. Isn't it weird to you that the side pods are blank on these cars? And I get that they just had the livery unveil, and some teams will do their livery unveil with sponsors, leading up to the season. In fact, Aaron McLaren's doing their big event, I believe, today. So I think there's a lot to be concerned about this team, and there's a lot of hype going in. And again, they have talented people. They've won everywhere. But we said the same thing about Carlin, and without them having that engineering ace in the hole with Michael Cannon, it just feels like we're going to be due for a letdown. Now, no one's expecting either of the entries to compete for top 10 in points, but I think with Eilert going in, you thought you're looking at a top 12 to 15 driver in the series and a points finish well within reach. I just think it's going to be really hard for them in year one.
I agree. I think they've done everything leading up to the season to excite people, and it's worked. But in the end, when you boil it down, it's a European team coming over to the United States, jumping right into the deep end of IndyCar as full-time team with a lineup that, in my opinion, lacks proven pedigree in this sport. Robert Schwartzman, like we mentioned, he's raced in Europe all his life. Callum Eilert, he had a couple decent results with Juncos, but he wasn't amazing at Juncos. Granted, you're talking about a team with very limited resources, but still, I think you look at this team, and you mentioned it earlier, realistically, and I think we had somebody reach out on Twitter and ask this question, realistically, Preman just needs to get two guys in the leader circle.
Yes.
That's it. Maybe a top 10 here or there, but I don't see them competing in the midfield, to be honest. I just feel like it's a learning year for Prema, and they probably know that, but they've done a really good job in terms of hiring people and in terms of resources and in terms of money, for sure. But how many times have we heard it's a very difficult series to jump into and have success right away? And Prema's no exception. I just feel like anybody thinking this team is going to compete for consistent top 10s, even top 15s, I have a hard time getting there.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I'm at, that you're asking a lot, and I think there's a lot of hype. Now, is it because of the hype that people have higher expectations and the way they present themselves?
I think so.
I think so, too.
Their reveal was amazing.
I have zero expectation of them placing drivers in the top 12, let alone top 15 of the championship.
Yeah.
I have zero expectation of them winning races, winning poles, anything like that. It's a lot to move in this series, especially with a car that's so old, right, that everyone's over-engineered by this point, and it's real challenging. At least Carlin had the benefit of a car that had changed, for 2018, right, in their first year, so it was at least kind of a new spec at that time.
Yeah, and even came over and did Indy Lights for a year, right? Carlin did before they jumped into IndyCar.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, they struggled mightily. Now, I think Prema is more invested financially than Carlin ever was in IndyCar, but I still think it's going to be a very, very steep uphill climb for Prema to get to relevance in this series. You just hope they don't get frustrated after a couple years and bow out. But I think they've built up the hype for people to be interested in what they do. I just don't think they meet certain people's expectations.
Yeah. First-time winners. Do we have a first-time winner?
Yes. And it's also, can I just tag this with my bold prediction? AJ Foyt Racing gets a win this year. Santino Ferrucci is going to win a race.
Okay, that's exactly what I was going to choose.
But that's all right. That's all right. What he did last year, what that team did last year, very eye-opening. If they can continue the forward momentum, which is a big if, you never know with Foyt Racing. They lose Michael Cannon. How much does that mean? But they still have the partnership, right, with Penske. Santino Ferrucci came close to a couple podiums, particularly at the ovals late in the season, Milwaukee, Nashville, Iowa as well. That's his forte. I think he gets a win on a short oval. I think you look at Iowa, you look at Gateway, Milwaukee. I think those are all potentials. I think Santino Ferrucci is your first-time winner this year.
Now, we did not have any first-time winners last year. I did look it up.
Okay.
I do expect not just Ferrucci, which was one of my selections. I also think Marcus Armstrong gets a win for Shank this year as well. We shall see.
Yeah,
maybe we're going out on a limb. Like, you look at it, and there are only so many races, right, and so many wins to take away from Ganassi and Penske drivers.
Right.
So that makes it tough. I mean, last year you look at it, Pato O'Ward won 3 races, Colton Herta won 2, and I believe that's it, right? So that
in terms of multiple winners,
in terms of non-Penske and Ganassi drivers winning races.
Yeah, you usually can pinpoint it down to about 4 or 5 races.
Yeah, I would say 4 to 6 is kind of that line.
And who's winning those races? And you have to throw McLaren in there. They're usually good for a couple with Pato. You think maybe Andretti can grab 1 or 2. So it doesn't leave very many after that. So who's winning those races? You and I think, yes, Santino Ferrucci can win one of those. And you're saying Marcus Armstrong after, a couple years at Ganassi. I mean, do we see a bit of a drop-off with him now at Meyer-Shank? I don't know.
I mean, he's got the same engineer carrying over,
True.
So I think that's a big factor. And the Ganassi technical partnership. I don't think it's as big of a change as you'd expect. Plus, once again, consistency is he's full-time again as well.
So we'll see. Can one or both of those guys prove us to be halfway intelligent and get a win?
What do we have left? We have what? Bold predictions? Do you have any bold predictions?
My
beyond
bold
your
prediction
Dixon
was, a couple. So I did Dixon outside the top 5. I did Santino Ferrucci to get a win. My bold prediction, and this continues to be in the back of my mind with every story I read hyping up Fox, and I hope I'm wrong. I don't see the jump, as big of a jump that everybody's anticipating. There was a story on Racer earlier this week that teams admire, Michael Shank saying he's already telling prospective and current sponsors that it's going to be a 30% jump in viewership. I just don't know. I mean, somebody threw out the 2 million.
I think it was Ganassi, but I think it was hypothetical.
Yeah, like if we could get to 2 million, that opens up a lot more mainstream sponsors.
1.5 is really the number.
I can't get there, and maybe I can definitely tell you it's rooted in so much disappointment over the decades when a new contract comes, and when NBC never gave IndyCar a full network lineup for sure.
It was close.
But the hype around NBC was very high. And there were some really good things that happened over 15, 16 years with NBC, but it never fulfilled what the initial excitement was. I think Fox is doing everything it needs to do to try, but I don't know if this is ever going to be more than a niche sport again. I'm not saying it's not going to go up, the ratings. I would absolutely be floored if IndyCar at some point over the next 2 years, 3 years, averaged 2 million viewers.
That would be incredible.
I can't get there. I'm fascinated, but also a little fearful to see the rating for Sunday, quite frankly. I mean, what is good? 1.5 million? I mean,
that would be exceptional. I think you get anything 1.2 million plus is good. Marshall Pruitt posted a graphic, and I thought this is super helpful, and I saved it in terms of the ratings. Last year, St. Pete on NBC got 0.57 and 900, just under 975,000 viewers in terms of the audience.
Okay,
so
I think over 1 million would be great.
Yes.
But outside, if they could average over 1 million outside of the Indianapolis 500, take that away. I think that's guaranteed. I think hopefully they do that. I just have a hard time getting to this 20%, 30% growth.
Well, you look at last year, you had 2 races on Peacock. You had 2 races bumped to CNBC. You had,
I'm looking
1, 2, 3, 4 races on USA.
But I think you this is what I'm looking at. Take the NBC races last year.
Actually, 5 on USA.
And compare them to the Fox races this year. And I have a hard time getting to 20 to 30% growth. That's what I'm comparing it to.
I think you get there because you have a season finale that's not ending in the midst of NFL season.
Correct.
That got under 500,000 viewers on NBC Network. So I think that's where you can make up a huge chunk.
I would hope so.
Alone.
I'm not there.
I'm there because you have all races on network TV. That alone is going to account for, at minimum, probably 20% increase.
Correct. But what I want to compare it to is apples to apples, NBC to Fox is what I want to do. And I can't see that 30% jump that Michael Shank is throwing out. I hope so.
Here's why I can. It's the same with race state equity. And we talk about this all the time. You start moving around race dates and the crowds go away. And you wonder why, and it's pretty obvious because people get used to consistency, right? IndyCar has this consistency where Sundays in the spring and summer,
right, they're
on Fox, period.
Right.
So there's consistency in the network. There's consistency in the promotion and messaging. All the practice and qualifying are in FS1 and FS2. You don't have to search around to find it.
True.
You know where it is. It's consistent. And I think that's why finally IndyCar is in a good spot. And to be fair, in the past, there have been TV deals that were viewed as outright disasters. Remember when IndyCar signed, a 10-year deal with Versus at the time? And it was what in the world is Versus? But that turned into...
deal. How stupid was that?
But it turned into a lot of cash infusion that IndyCar desperately needed in that era, going into a recession, right? It turned into NBC Sports Network, which turned into, name credibility in terms of the network. And then eventually led to NBC taking on the property as well and having at least 1 year where all but 3 races were on network. So it led to good things. Now, the NBC relationship came to a close, and I think a lot of it is they invested. Look, they ditched IndyCar, they ditched the NHL, they invested in the NBA, which good luck with that.
Well, my big thing is I think you could get there. In terms of the 30, I think the 1.5 million average is a more attainable goal. I don't see it this year. I think you can get there. But will Fox stay invested for that long? Fox has invested a lot of money. Just the Super Bowl alone was $25 million worth of ad buys?
I thought it was like 40 or something.
So it was a big deal, or at least ads they could have sold that they didn't to put in IndyCar. They're putting a lot of money into IndyCar. And I don't know what the mindset is for Fox on what the number they want to hit this year, 2025, is. I just have a hard time buying into this exponential jump that so many people are counting on. And it's not that I don't have faith in Fox. I just don't have faith that there's people out there that are going to stumble upon IndyCar and all of a sudden start tuning in. Because we've been burned so many times before. It's kind of just, for me, I'll believe it when I see it. And that's why I'm cautiously optimistic. It's great, but also in the back of my mind, I'm going, this could be the last best chance for IndyCar to return to relevancy outside of a million diehards. And I'm fearful of what the sport looks like going forward if this doesn't bring people in.
Peak IndyCar to talk 10 minutes about TV ratings, right?
But I think a lot of people are going to be glued to that number on Monday, Tuesday, and I think maybe it's going to disappoint people. I think if they get 1.1 million, I think you and I are happy with it, but I think there's a lot of people out there thinking the number is going to be 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 million, and I just don't see it. And I hope Fox isn't expecting that either if it doesn't happen.
I don't think they're expecting 1.5 million for the first race. I think it'll build. I think it helps that they have NASCAR, right? Like coming up after.
Right. But that's the thing too. All you need is a couple delays with IndyCar races and all of a sudden you're on FS1.
Yeah.
The
good news is that it was confirmed, and this was probably true before, but we saw formal confirmation that through the length of the multi-year deal, which we don't know how many years it is, one would assume 3. That's typically
it's at least
how this
2,
works.
multi-years too.
Yeah.
So.
But all races will be on Fox Network.
Which is interesting because is it the Women's World Cup or the
Men's World Cup is next
which
summer.
Which is going to, I think...
in the U.S., in Canada, and Mexico.
And I don't think... The schedule is going to look interesting. So what, it's June, July next year?
I think so.
You have 8 races in June and July this year in IndyCar. There's going to be some schedule finagling because the World Cup, quite frankly, is going to get better ratings than IndyCar. So you would think IndyCar is going to have to go around the World Cup.
So group stage is June 11th through 17th, 18th through 23rd, 24th through 27th. And remember, they have more teams in it. It's not 32. They doubled it, right? It's 64.
Oh, my goodness, really?
So round of 32 is June 28th through July 3rd. Round of 16, July 4th through 7th.
Teams, 48 teams.
Okay.
Yes.
So it used to be 32.
Correct.
July 4th through 7th is the round of 16. Quarters are July 9th through 11th. Semis, July 14th and 15th. Third place, July 18th. Final, July 19th. So that's going to take up, that's the bread and butter of the IndyCar schedule, right? So we'll see how they work around it. They'll find a way.
They'll find a way, but I think maybe you have some inopportune dates for certain races.
You may have races
times.
On Saturdays. You may have races...
At the very least, you may not have lead-ins out of or into NASCAR, but instead soccer, which isn't going to be as effective. But at least we know, per Jenna Fryer, that IndyCar will have all their races next year on Fox.
Yes.
But maybe to the detriment of certain dates of races and times of races, which is always crucial with some of these, or most of these races with date equity. So... I just coming back to it. I just am worried that certain people have set their expectations way too high, and it's just because we have been around long enough to see certain things not work out as they have been promised, and this is one of them.
Always the pessimist.
You know me. I got to bring everybody down. But what is your bold prediction for the season? Could it be something positive? Because I turned the room down.
Bold prediction. I'm again still on that Rinus VeeKay Dale Coyne train. I'm going to say Rinus VeeKay finishes higher in points than Alexander Rossi.
Oh,
call me crazy.
Okay, you're
is that
really
bold?
high on the coin. Yeah,
is that bold?
I think well,
I think that's bold.
I think you start with the teams. You're really high on Coyne.
Look,
right
Ed Carpenter Racing is proven to not be a team that's really that competitive anywhere except Indianapolis, right? And we expect him to qualify well and run well at Indy. But with this cash infusion, a new partnership with Ted Galov and Splenda and Java House and all that, like, is this going to actually lead to increased results? I mean, Rossi had top flight equipment his whole career. This will be the first time he's not had top flight equipment. And also, in terms of what he did at Arrow McLaren, I mean, you can't view it as anything but a disappointment, right? I mean, he didn't win a race in his 2 years at Arrow McLaren. 9th and 10th in the championship. I mean, he hasn't finished better than 9th in the championship. 2019, he was 3rd. 2020 on, he's finished 9th or 10th. Okay? Right. The numbers speak for themselves. I don't feel like I'm going out on a limb here. Whereas Rinus VeeKay in an Ed Carpenter car has consistently been top 15 in the championship. In fact, he was 13th last year, 14th in 23, 12th in 22, 12th in 21, 14th in 2020, his rookie year. So, yeah, call me crazy, but that's my bold prediction.
I see eerie parallels of what the career could have been for J.R. Hildebrand if he would have won the Indianapolis 500 to what Alexander Rossi has done. He won the 100th Indianapolis 500. I'm not taking that win away from him because of how he won it, but he won the Indianapolis 500 and it propelled him into a long career in IndyCar. J.R. Hildebrand made a mistake, lost the Indianapolis 500 in dramatic fashion, and it pretty much derailed his full-time career in IndyCar in a short time. I think the career that Alexander Rossi is having after winning the Indianapolis 500 is about what I would have expected for J.R. Hildebrand if he would have won the Indianapolis 500. In terms of he's a solid driver, he's not a star guy, but he's made a lot out of winning the Indianapolis 500. And kudos to him. He kept his ride multiple seasons with Andretti, got an opportunity at McLaren. A lot of mileage out of one race. But when you take the entire bag of results of the career, in which he has, 8 wins? 7 wins total? It's not that great.
He hasn't been a title contender. Look, his career has completely flipped since the introduction of the Aero screen for whatever reason. And he's just not been the same driver since.
He hasn't finished higher than 9th.
Yeah.
In a season.
That's my point.
Since 2019.
I mean, he had top flight equipment. He was with the Big 3 and then Big 4. And now he's going with the team that last year, quite frankly, was one of the worst full-time teams that had stability in terms of driver line. I mean, Coyne is a special situation, right? They didn't have any stability. But outside of the other teams, I mean, ECR was the bottom half, bottom 2 probably.
Right. The Aero screen thing to me is an excuse. That buys you a year, maybe.
Yeah, that's just kind of the point in time where it changed.
Right. I'm not saying you've used that excuse, but other people have used that excuse. But it's just like the greatest drivers. What do we say? Anytime, anywhere, they'll jump into IndyCar.
Yeah.
And from the Foyts to the Andrettis to the Kyle Larsons to the Scott Dixons to who have the greatest drivers can jump into anything and in a short amount of time be competitive. And so the whole, for him, the Aero screen, yes, was maybe the point of no return, but he's not a good, now I say good. He's not a great race car driver. And
he's good.
He's serviceable. I think he's J.R. Hildebrand with the Indy 500 win. It's pretty much, I mean, he's a serviceable driver. He's opened doors that otherwise would not have been open to him because he won the Indianapolis 500.
And again, I still expect him to do well at Indy, especially with his team. But in terms of overall championship, I'm sell.
Well, and when you look at that team makeup, as you're coming back to, and what your predictions are, I just don't see him being that guy. ECR could potentially be the AJ Foyt Racing this year due to the influx of cash and capital and investment.
But with IndyCar, it's you got to see it to believe it, right? That's how we are.
But their driver lineup leaves something to be desired. And unfortunately, you and I are on the same wavelength with Alexander Rossi. He's just not the guy. And I don't even want to say he's not the guy he was, because I don't think he ever was the guy. He got an Indianapolis 500 win.
I mean, he competed for a championship a couple of times.
True.
But that was the apex. And
it was a long time ago. I mean,
it was over 5 years
is an
ago.
Eternity in racing, right?
True.
Especially when you're with a Power 4 team. And now you're expecting him to be this guy. I'm not saying you, but people expecting him to be this guy for ECR when he couldn't do it in his last several years with Andretti and definitely couldn't do it with McLaren. I don't buy it.
Now, the only pass I'll give him with McLaren is no driver has won outside of Pato Award with that team.
True.
But the expectation with him coming in was to win races and compete for championships, and that simply did not happen.
Did not happen, no. So, no, I agree with the internal bold prediction. I'm not buying ECR. I have zero confidence in their lineup, quite frankly, to be consistently competitive.
If you agree or disagree with us, we'd love for you to interact with us. You can always find us on social media, IndyCar Podcast on Instagram, on Twitter /X, Facebook, just search for New Track Record. You can also email us your questions, comments, rants, concerns, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. Support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord. Thanks to Xavier and others for their support. And as always, download and listen for free on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. Mailbag time. We will be quick through this, going through some things and a couple of good questions I know from last week in terms of talking about the season and whatnot. We find the first one, Jeff Cerneski. Forgot about this. NOLA was the backdrop for the Will Smith movie Focus.
I remember that.
IndyCars were portrayed as F1. I think this was filmed on a test day at the track. And
I think the car that got the most screen time was Ryan Hunter-Reay in the DHL car, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Xander_Ridge said, great episode, guys, talking about last week. Loved having 3 hosts this time with a wink.
No Morrison this week.
Quick question. What do you think would be a good target for Prema to hit in the overall standings in the 500? Call their first season a success, taking into account their money, experience, and facilities. Thanks. I think we said it earlier. I feel the same. Just get both cars in the leader circle.
Both cars in leader circle.
That's the goal.
And I think internally they have the same goals. Externally, you always have to aim high for sure.
Yeah.
But I think if they can get both drivers comfortably in leader circle, they'll be fine. And we say the same thing about Coyne. You have a little higher expectations, particularly for Rinus VeeKay. But I think if Coyne can get both their drivers in the leader circle, but there's 5 cars that aren't going to be in the leader circle in terms of full-timers. So those have to come from somewhere. Is it Coyne? Is it ECR? Is it Prema? Who knows? But there has to be 5 cars that don't get that money.
A couple of replies to the news that Penske Entertainment chose to place 2 of its non-competition executives in charge of the new car project. Mark Miles, of course, the CEO. Rich Shearing, COO of Penske Automotive Group. So not even a racing guy. Bizarre story. It sounds like the new car is going to be delayed to 2028. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. But Kojo617 said, how many words was that to say? Absolutely nothing. Jamin T14 said, hope it goes well, with a gif from Tommy Boy.
That's a classic.
Classic. But yeah, it doesn't give us confidence.
Well, the series of announcements of the last couple weeks, starting with the Doug Bowles thing, now this, then Bowles being put in charge of Indy Lights, right? And I think Marshall Pruitt referenced it maybe in the mailbag this week. It's just kind of a bunch of yes men, right? Like we said last week. It is putting people in charge that aren't going to challenge the status quo. And, very successful people and megalomaniacs too love to surround themselves with minions, with people that don't challenge them, don't question them. And I think Penske Corp is doing a heck of a job in terms of insulating itself from any types of challenge to its rule by putting these people in positions where they're at.
And at least giving off the perception that that's what they're doing.
Right. It doesn't help when you ask for the benefit of the doubt when you make these moves.
100 Days to Indy back. It'll be kind of split, 3 episodes leading up to and covering the Indy 500 starting May 22nd. It'll be on Fox Nation, a streaming service. I believe it's like $8 a month. And then 3 episodes covering the championship. So it's not really 100 Days to Indy. It
was kind of a weird.
Kind of needs a new name.
Yeah, it was the official name is 100 Days to Indy: The Road to the IndyCar Championship.
Yes.
I'm like,
which one?
Which one is it?
It's both.
So kind of weird.
But Poet Shevchenko is saying something to incentivize IndyCar fans to subscribe to the Fox streaming platform before they add the sports part of it later this year. It's an excellent point. Elsewhere, and talking about Fox and TV deals and whatnot. The nugget on the all races on network, and a couple of good replies on that as well, if I can find it here on the list. Let's see. Here we go. First from Tommy the Treat 01, an IndyCar reportedly took less money for Fox, just shows the most expensive offer isn't always the best one. And Poet Shevchenko also saying, once again, Fox is being a better TV partner than IndyCar deserves at this point.
In terms of results, in terms of views, yeah, definitely true.
And Lynn _IndyCar chiming in, but they chose wisely to promote their sport, unlike NASCAR, who takes the highest rights fees. I'll be curious what NASCAR on Prime, NASCAR, only 5 of the 14 Fox affiliated races are on Fox, the rest are on FS1. I'll be curious to see how that plays out for them long term.
What are they on, 5 different networks and streams this year?
You have Fox and FS1, you have Amazon Prime, you have the TNT, and then you have NBC, which would assume it'd also be on USA as well.
So 6?
Yeah.
I mean,
look, they're taking the check, and I get it, but
as
you
long
kind of
as
wonder.
The check keeps coming.
Yeah. To be fair, I thought they'd be hurting because they had that massive Fox NBC TV deal, and they still were able to keep cashing the check because, look, during the summer, NASCAR gets better ratings than baseball. Like, NASCAR pretty much dominates on most weekends, spring, summer, and fall outside of football. So there's still value in that, but the more you split up your TV rights, are we looking at more of a challenge to get ratings?
At least with casuals, but I do. NASCAR has more diehard fans that will follow it wherever it goes. So you may not get the casuals, but there's plenty of diehards that will follow it and tune in. But that's a long-term play. Like that's the thing, is the impact on NASCAR, if the ratings start dipping because they're all over the place, won't impact things for multiple years in Cup.
Elsewhere, Richard Buck, who was the new race director for the series formerly known as Indy Lights, hired in December, left the role ahead of the opening round. There were questions, and it seemed to be some sort of disagreement between Buck and the team owners, a disconnect.
We hardly knew
racer. So he's out. Fascinating. Doug Bowles, of course, taking over.
Of course. Why not? He's got to update that business card again.
A few replies here. Poet Shevchenko saying, also breaking the 34 through 36 Indy 500 entries this year will be driven by Doug Bowles. Rob _McMahon said, what is going on? A GIF from The Office featuring Jim. Richardson Roa said the cracks are showing, and Hunter's Way 67 said one more item on Doug Bowles' plate. Nice RP, real nice.
Which I don't, at least reading the Racer article, I don't know if this is on Penske. It sounds like the issue was him and the teams.
Yeah, it seems like the teams went to Penske and said, hey, this is not going to work.
And that's like a move like you have to make. If the teams are coming to you and saying, this dude is not the dude, then you need to make a move. I guess while it's comical that Doug Bowles is put in charge of it, I kind of don't look at Penske and Penske Corp to blame, other than the fact that they hired this guy to begin with. Maybe they should have not hired him in the first place, would kind of be my thing. But in terms of his removal, it sounds more like it was pushed by the teams, and you can't be losing teams in Indy Lights. That's for sure. Especially the ones that put, 9 cars on the grid like HMB.
Right. Which we'll have more on that in news and notes as well. In fact, time for news and notes. And let's start off with Fox. They've confirmed the broadcast crew: Kevin Lee, Jack Harvey, Georgia Henneberry, who's currently on maternity leave. It'll be Jamie Little filling in for St. Pete. Now, it seems like for the next race on the schedule that Georgia will be back. I mean, that's March 23rd. We shall see. But Jamie Little will help, but is not expected to be part of the team after the Indy 500. Ryan Hunter-Reay was talked about previously. I don't think something's going to become of that. Kevin Lee also set to call the Indy Lights races as well. Be curious what the crew is for those. But we finally have
Charlie
some.
Kimball was part of it last year, right?
Yes.
In the last couple of years.
So we finally have some sort of confirmation. There's a good Q&A with Nathan Brown of the IndyStar, IndyStar.com, with the Fox Sports lead producer for IndyCar, talking about some of the things. And the one positive is shorter pre-race windows.
That's the biggest positive for you out of anything involved with the new Fox deal.
Yeah, in terms of the shorter TV windows, because they're all 2.5 hours. So the graphics package is going to be something to look forward to. But I think the positive is we're going to be shorter TV windows. The quote is, "We want to set up the race and get fans to racing sooner than later." So that is from Pam Miller, who's the lead producer for this. She's worked in kart and Champ Car, obviously NASCAR on Fox, but she'll headline this. So all in all, be curious to see what happens for next week. Or not next week, for this weekend, in terms of the broadcast, how everything goes with Hinch and T-Bell and Will Buxton in the booth. We know the pit reporters, and we'll see how it plays out with all the graphics. But obviously, really looking forward to it. I think there's a buzz for this we haven't seen in quite some time.
You know, people's questions are they going to use the cartoon aspect of things?
It looks like they will, but it will not be as NASCAR-ized, if you will.
I guess does that bother you as much as it does some people?
No,
me neither. I mean, they use it for the NFL. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's different. I guess some people are, oh, no, it doesn't even look like, I don't know. People pick the weirdest things to complain about, I swear.
Linus Lundqvist, he will be at St. Pete, obviously not with the ride, and he said his contract was terminated in January. He broke his silence, a long post on social media. More litigation. Fun.
Oh, joy.
Just hope they can come to a good conclusion, is basically what he said. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. We don't want to dwell too much on IndyCar and the courts, because that's quite easy to do. Other notes leading into the weekend: Alex Rodriguez will drive the fastest seat in sports. Obviously, a Fox personality, MLB on Fox.
Pretty great pick. And as you mentioned, it's better than any social media influencer.
Yeah, all these people that they were going with the last couple of years, that I get it. It's drawing in a younger demo. But there's no
for one day.
Yeah, but there's no name cachet with a lot of these people.
Right.
So I don't know.
And then again, I mean, if there's new, if the ratings say that they're getting younger, which there was a story out about that.
Yeah, on Racer
was working, I guess. I don't know, but who knows? We're not the target demo for those social media.
We're too old.
Yeah, people
for
anyway.
That. Also, you have the Long Beach Motorsports Walk of Fame honoree class. Scott Dixon headlines, along with Long Beach Association President and CEO Jim McCallion, former Long Beach Mayor Beverly O'Neill, honored in that before the race weekend at Long Beach and SoCal. TWG Global has announced the launch of TWG Motorsports, which is a new division of the holding company that brings together its motorsports properties. That is the headline word for word from Racer. I don't know what that means, but they essentially have
didn't understand.
A motorsports group, which is makes sense. Other teams, this is really cool. Mobile One is back in IndyCar. They'll be with Graham Rahal, primary sponsor at Thermal Club, full season associate sponsorship. The car for Thermal looks incredible, I must say. And Mobile One, I mean, they were last in the sport with Penske, probably like over a decade ago.
Yeah, I think it's been over 10 years.
So really cool. HMD Motorsports, another driver announced. And I'm going to butcher this name. Evagoras Papasavas. Partial schedule, the number 18 at Gateway Road America in Mid-Ohio, reserve driver for 2025 as well.
Now they got reserve drivers for Indy Lights.
Wild, right? IMS announced their Indy 500 Fan Fest for 2025. Evansville, here in Fort Wayne, Bloomington, and downtown Indy. You can get the details on the IMS website for that. Coming up April and May, I believe, for those dates. Couple other mailbag items left. Let's see. Ashley Newgarden released a children's book, Goodnight Racetrack, after Joseph Newgarden had released a children's book as well. So she's joined in on the fun. Garage Guy Chase posted a video, and it's Alex Palou's IndyCar on Fox promo at a gas station pump.
I saw that.
So I couldn't tell the gas station. It did not look like it was Shell, which often has featured Joseph Newgarden in ads at the pump in May and June for obvious reasons. But that's pretty cool. And with that, I think anything else that we missed?
I don't think so. I think we're all just really excited to head into the weekend. And how are you going to balance watching all the coverage and also being in Houston? Are you just going to say, I'm not going to be able to do everything, I'm going to or catch up next week? What's the plan?
I'll probably watch stuff like recorded or on my phone or whatever. And yeah, I'll have to figure it out. I'll be probably visiting the IndyCar website quite a bit, which has been revamped.
Yes, not yet the app, as I just opened the app.
I'm sure that's coming.
Let's
talk about St. Pete. So
let's do it.
The schedule for the weekend, all times Eastern time. Practice 1 on FS1, 3 o'clock Friday. On Saturday, you have practice 2, 10 a.m. FS2, qualifying 2:30 p.m. FS1, and then on Sunday the warm up 9 a.m. on FS2. Coverage on Fox starts at noon. I'm not sure if they have posted a green flag time. Let's see, 12:29. So it's going to be a long.
Yeah, I thought we weren't having long
pre-races,
but I think that's for the first one. First of Fox season opener. What I would like to see on the website or on the app as I am on, can I get a combined IndyCar and Indy Lights schedule?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Wouldn't it?
Also, obviously, on Sirius XM 218, IndyCar Radio, as well, IndyCar Live, as well, $20 for the full season. Delayed 24 hours for all the sessions, but that's how you can access it. Our 3 key stats for St. Pete. It's back, courtesy of Chad 200. And looking at what we have for St. Pete, first off, power, 9 poles, no other driver in history having more than one. All-time laps leader, 269, qualified on the front row 12 times. Scott McLaughlin won in 2022. That's his only top 10 finish in 5 starts at St. Pete. Dixon, Plo, and Rossi, 34 total starts, 9 podiums, 14 top 5s, 204 laps led, 0 wins.
So, you taking willpower?
I think I'm going to take...
Rinus VeeKay?
No.
You're high on not that high on Rinus VeeKay?
I'm not that high. Get real. Okay? I compared him to another midfield back-of-the-pack team. For the win, man, I mean, Joseph Newgarden seems to dominate this race, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to pick against him. But I probably should, so I'll go with willpower.
You'll go with willpower. I was going to go Scott McLaughlin, but I won't make it an all Penske party. I will go the boring pick. Alex Palou wins at St. Petersburg.
We're so excited.
Well,
with these picks. We've not been given a reason to pick otherwise. Right.
It's fun to think about what ifs, but when it comes down to picking race winners and championship contenders,
I mean, if we were picking F1, we're not picking Williams to win a race and win the championship, right? I think
there's more expectations for Williams this year, kind of like what we talked about with Dale Coyne and stuff, but we're not all of a sudden throwing him into contention. So, no, it's a prove it. Prove that you're better.
Yes.
And we'll see at least the first indication of who's there and who's not starting on Sunday.
Now, don't forget, sign up for our IndyCar Fantasy Challenge. Download the Grid Rival app for free on your phone, on your phone's app store. We've tweeted out the link. We posted it on all our social media. I will post it again.
Did you say it was a problem searching for it?
Yeah, I wasn't able to search for it last week when I just searched for our league, but it's New Track Record Podcast. I'll tweet out the link again. It's also on our Facebook page. It's our Instagram link in our bio. So it's everywhere. Thanks to everyone who's joined. If you win the league, you will get your opportunity to brag about it, episode in the podcast during the off season. You will also get a pack of the retro IndyCar trading cards and a pack of the new Parkside IndyCar trading cards as well. So
I'm wondering,
that's the prize.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if you can search for it if you're not already in
that
our league.
Could be. So
you and I just searched for it and it didn't come up, but we're already in it. So maybe that's the case.
Again, we'll post the link again, or if you need the league invite code, that is F is in Frank, V is in Victor, F is in Frank, J is in James, I is in, I don't know, Indigo, and J is in James. So there you go. There's the invite code as well. So make sure you sign up. We're hoping to get a few more. We're so close to 75. I'd be thrilled if we magically get to 100, but if we can get a couple more, break 75, that'd be great.
And I didn't even know there's a chat in there.
Yes, there is a chat, and people are blowing up the chat. It's been fun.
All right. I'm going to have to start responding in the chat.
All right, tweets of the week, and it's just one tweet, and it blew my mind because I didn't know this still existed, but Colton Herta posted, at Rainforest Cafe, miss this place. I didn't know it still existed. But there are apparently 16 locations worldwide. Did you ever go to Rainforest Cafe as a kid?
No.
You did not?
I did not. Inform me on what Rainforest Cafe is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is like peak 1990s. If you're a kid, it's like the coolest thing. Like they have like simulated thunderstorms, and there's
really?
Like
where was this like the closest one? Was there one in Indy?
No. Probably
south?
In Florida.
Okay.
But yeah, in terms of Rainforest Cafe, there are locations. Let's see. Here we go. I'm on their website. It still exists. Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Okay.
Arizona Mills, Arizona. I assume that's it's in Tempe. They're often in malls. Disney Springs.
Okay.
Disney World, Animal Kingdom. Galveston, Texas. Grapevine Mills, Texas. That's a mall as well in Grapevine in the DFW Metroplex. Great Lakes Crossing, Michigan. That's in Auburn Hills outside of Detroit. Gurney Mills, Illinois, obviously outside Chicago. Katy Mills, that's outside of Houston. Las Vegas. Mall of America in Minneapolis. Ontario Mills in Ontario, California, in the LA area. Opry Mills, so that's Nashville. I would assume that's at the mall there by Opryland. San Antonio. Sawgrass Mills in Florida. That's in Sunrise, Florida. So that's, I believe that's where the Florida Panthers play.
I think so. It sounds familiar.
It was in the Miami area. They have a location in Abu Dhabi.
Oh,
Dubai.
That's the one I'll get to.
Dubai as well. Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada, on the other side of the falls. So one on either side. Paris, France. Tokyo, Japan. San Giljan, Malta.
Oh, Malta, like in the middle of the Mediterranean?
Yeah. So those are the locations. I didn't know it still existed. I thought they completely went out of business, but do some research for yourself. It was like this magical thing if you were a kid. It's a restaurant. So
it's just a restaurant, but it's like rainforest themed, and it has thunderstorms and stuff?
Yeah. They would like play on the speakers. It'd be like a storm every so often, and they'd have like animals, and obviously there's food.
Like real animals?
No,
like
not
simulated animals.
Like simulated. I think they may have like some that they'd like bring around.
Okay.
I went to it as a kid. I don't really remember what location. I assume Florida, but yeah, still a thing.
So if anyone wants to pay an all expenses paid trip to the Malta location for you and I, we'll definitely be on it.
Or we could just drive to
Nashville's the closest.
Detroit. No, like. Detroit.
Detroit. Oh, yeah. Really?
Detroit.
So yeah, if you're heading to the Detroit race, maybe we'll just all meet up at the Rainforest Cafe.
There you go. All right. With that, we've covered our predictions. We've previewed St. Pete.
We got our fantasy league.
Yeah. Promo. It's time for our random split air driver of the week.
Well, we're going to the 2006 Champ Car season, also known as the 2006 Bridgestone Presents the Champ Car World Series, powered by Ford. And
always amusing.
Going with Andreas Wirth.
I think I've heard of him. German?
Yes. Yeah. Who won the Formula BMW USA Championship. That's where he started when he came stateside in 2004. He then did Champ Car Atlantics in 2005 and 2006 and got 2 starts in that 2006 year for Dale Coyne Racing. None of them were in the United States. He was at Surfers Paradise and Mexico City. Finished 9th at Surfers, 15th at Mexico City, and that was it. He was done. Also did some European Le Mans, with an interesting team, SMP Racing. Remember them?
Yes, the Russian.
Yeah, they were Russian with Mikhail Oshin, right? So that kind of jumped out to me as well with Andreas Wirth, but he was named to compete in his first Champ Car race in Dale Coyne's racing entry at Surfers, and then went on to do the race with Coyne in Mexico City. In 2008, he ran in the Petit Le Mans with PTG Panos, and he competed for 7 seasons in the GT Masters series, then moved into prototype racing where he did race for SMP Racing. He began his season or his career in karting, 1998. He did Formula Ford. He did raced at Brands Hatch. He did some BMW racing, mostly just sports car stuff other than those 2 racing seasons in Atlantics and those 2 races in Champ Car. He won 3 races in Atlantics, Denver in 2005, Long Beach and Houston in 2006. He sat out 2007 after those 2 races with Coyne before getting into the GT Masters in 2007. So 2 and done in kart. He is still relatively young guy, 40 years old. Still does some racing in European Le Mans and BMW series, stuff like that overseas. But Andreas Wirth from Heidelberg, Germany, this week's Random Split Era Driver of the Week.
In one of nearly a dozen Random Split Era Driver of the Week candidates from that 2006 Champ Car season.
Yeah, and we're running low even on those. But, Dale Coyne Racing, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
For sure. All right. Well, with that, we'll be back next week to recap the season opening race, the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. For Justin Kinney, I am Caleb Hatch. Thanks for joining us on another edition of New Track Record Podcast.